So we're going to try and keep it crisp and lively and maybe have a bit of audience interaction here. I would like to ask a question. Well, so what does composable by design mean in practice for the IT architecture? And how does it differ from traditional modular or layered approaches? So Shashank, I think you wanted to talk to us, maybe kick that one off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. First of all, afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with the basics. Composable as a word. What does it mean? It's little small components here and there, and they speak with each other coherently. And that's essentially what this IT architecture is all about. There are little components of our telco architecture which are designed, which are matured. For example, the CRM, the order management, the leads management. These little components, they should be independent of each other. They should be designed in a way, what TM Forum talks about, microservices, containerized architecture, very much independent, and yet they should be able to coherently and, very seamlessly speak with each other. And how? They should essentially be speaking with, TM Forum Open APIs or a standard that's, very well known across the world, so that, a number of different applications from different vendors can speak in a very common language. And that's the whole intent of composable architecture. And which is why, it is a very much a big need in the telcos today, or CSPs or DSPs, whatever you want to say. It's a big need today. And, they're essentially, they do not want to swap the entire platform. They want to swap, little things here and there, and it should still seamlessly work with each other.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the objective what composable architecture will achieve. And, very much what we as a company are doing. With the latest release, we have a service catalog, which is a separate composable architecture certified by the ODA. Thank you, TM Forum. And, working exactly in the same direction as where the industry is going.
Okay, thank you. That's a very excellent explanation of what it all means. Pramath, I think you wanted to talk about context awareness.
Yeah, one of the redeeming features coming out of this composable IT is this element of context. And if you see, Willie had that diagram of composable IT, autonomous, and AI and data. It is the context that is manifested in the form of intent that drives the composability, the dynamism that the modern workflows have. That is driven by the intent and the composability of the workflows. It is not predetermined. And this intent can be way at the top at the customer layer. It could be at the service layer. Autonomous behavior is all throughout. It is just not restricted to networks. And so Camara APIs and all the marketplace systems, they also need that composable IT. And that's another important element in the dynamic nature of composable IT.
Okay, yes, that's a very helpful explanation. So you've evoked the ecosystem and all parts of the platform needs to talk to one another. So that leads nicely on to the next question, which is basically which cloud-native technologies, open APIs, or architectural patterns are proving most effective in enabling that kind of composability at scale. I think, Shashank, did you want to kick us off on that one?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So there are two aspects to this question. First part is what technologies. I think, everyone in the room is, every technologist in the room is very much aware of, the application needs to be containerized, microservices, and the ability to, integrate using SOAP, Swaggers, and so on. So I'll not get too much into, what technologies we want to use. As in fact, we want to be independent of technology and yet achieve the things that we want to achieve. We want to concentrate more on business, less on technology. Having said that, coming to business, the trend that I have seen from an architectural pattern perspective is something called as a headless BSS. I'm not saying headless CRM, headless billing, a headless BSS, where the BSS layer does all the grunt work, the hard work, the integrations, the interconnections, the seamlessness, and yet you get to achieve, you get to design what your UI looks like yourself. That way, the front end belongs to whatever vendor you see in the market. They would be as innovative from a front end perspective. but there's a big back-end work that's needed in the back-end in order for the front end to work. And that's the whole concept of a headless BSS. That's where the industry, I think, is leading. That's what the industry is liking today. But again, open to opinions and questions. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's an interesting concept, the headless BSS. Now, we're going to introduce a slight interactive element here, because I think, Jawwad, you wanted to ask our audience a question as they're struggling in the run-up to lunch, so to encourage some discussion.
Sure. Thanks, David. I believe we have a very small audience and they really deserve to be appreciated for being here
Yes.
just before lunch. So there is a question, a very simple one that we would like to ask you guys as a panel. What, in your opinion, has kept you from moving to composable IT? Any tangible, practical challenge that you might have faced so far? Anyone?
Any takers for that question? No- What do you mean by that question? Can you elaborate?
Sure. So, in practical terms, in reality, on ground, what are the challenges or the biggest challenge that you as an organization might have faced in moving or evolving to composable IT? Because on the panel, we are talking about composable IT, we will probably touch upon the benefits and a lot of things around the same concept. A concept that has been around for, if I'm not mistaken, more than 60 years now. The concept is not new, but something must have been holding back us, the organizations, more specifically telcos, to move to it. So, what exactly are those challenges?
Could have proprietary softwares which don't lend themselves to legacy systems, which don't lend themselves to integrate easily. And sometimes it is by design, sometimes by accident, sometimes people don't want to expose all the
Absolutely right.
APIs.
Yeah. So, it's the technical debt, if I may call it,
It is
right,
technical.
that is holding us back. So, once we know what is holding us back, that's the only starting point when we would be able to overcome that.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, our next question relates to the role of AI, and what do the panelists think that the role of AI and automation will play in accelerating the composability journey? And Jawwad, do you want to lead on that one?
Sure. Thanks, David. So, I would rather flip the question and ask myself whether AI is an enabler or a foundation for composability. So, my take on the question is that it is an enabler. It's not a foundation.
Correct.
Because both have been going on in telco market for quite some time. However, moving forward, as we look at automation and more importantly the autonomy, AI is going to play an important part of for enabling the organization to move and accelerate their journeys towards composability.
Totally.
Okay. Shashank, would you like to?
I absolutely second Jawwad. I thought my opinion was supposed to be controversial. It is not. It is the consensus. AI is not really the foundation layer as far as I'm concerned for composable architecture. We were discussing in the question, it's been there for a very long time. As a concept of composability, it's been there for a very long time. It is not a big necessity. However, it is a big enabler. The results that you would have probably seen in, say, 5-10 years, you can now see it instantaneously. You can automate your routines. You can set your proactive actions and get your responses right away. You can create 10 chatbots and 10 AI assistants of different modules and ask them to speak with each other. The new concept we're talking about is the Model Concept Protocol, the MCP, which every BSS platform should now be moving to. The way they should be, all their AI assistants should speak with each other. So that's the way to go, I think. But again, coming back to your main question, it is not really the foundation requirement, but it is a big, big enabler, and it should be more so going forward.
Right. Okay. That's a very important distinction, I think. Willie, would you like to add something there from your perspective?
Thank you very much, Martin. Like I said earlier, AI in the first instance, I would say is a business imperative. From a business point of view, to AI-enabled organization is all pervasive. So I think that natural pull is going to be there from a business point of view. The argument that I ran in my presentation is to say that we believe in TM Forum is that composable IT, the ODA architecture, the framework provides the vehicle to give you the outcome that you seek from a business point of view, which is really more intelligence and how you serve your customers, how you run your enterprise. That's the business outcome. So I don't see composable IT as per se as an outcome. I think that's an enabler. The outcome always has to be the impact that we make to our customers, to the enterprise. Higher revenues, lower cost base. I think that's what CEOs, that's what boards and investors want, right? But the good news, as I said earlier, from a ODA TM Forum point of view, the foundation that we collectively have put down is very solid. And the pivot to agentic AI, it's I wouldn't say it's seamless and easy. It's still hard work required, but it's absolutely doable. We don't have to start from scratch. So it's a continuation of the journey.
Yep. Okay. So AI is really kind of an accelerator or an enabler, but the foundation is the ODA, really, this message. Okay, so now we're going to sort of think about the relationship with existing technology, with the legacy and so on. And the question is, how do you prioritize between some of the challenges you were referring to earlier in your presentation, Willie, between adopting emerging tech and standardizing on proven solutions? So, Pramath, would you like to lead on that one?
There was one key thing that Willie had mentioned in his presentation, that it is a continuous evaluation process. So, call it architect office, call it strategy office, transformation office, any team that is entrusted to keep the tracking of technology, they always do that on a continuous basis. And it could be by way of impact radars, hype cycles, any model that you choose. There are many in the industry. You have time on one axis and you have some sort of a value. We talk tech debt as one of the parameters on the axis. Some may have growth has indicator on the y-axis. The thing is, you have to take a number of coherent trends into that plot. Like if you take observability, AI, logging and monitoring, and take what are those critical capability among them, and where are they on the plot? And for the purpose of this discussion, we can say, let's say hype cycle. Remove the left-hand side, which is on the early bird side. Remove the right-hand side. Just look at the center. And look at all the technologies, coherent technologies, and say, is it too early for me to invest? Is it too late? What is the driver that I have to remove technology debt or to be ahead in the innovation game? And that is a continuous balance that has to be done to see whether I go for emerging technology or I look for, should I wait for the standards to mature a bit? So it's a constant balance between all these parameters that the technology offices, they often do that when making that decision.
Okay, no, that's a very very helpful way of expressing it there. Moving on.
I've got a little thing to add here. I mean, I gave a thought as we were talking about it, and I think, my thought process is quite simple when it comes down to, adopting new technologies. There's new technologies coming every day. So it goes in two layers, and it's a very simplistic thought process, but quite proven. So you have got a single base foundation layer, which does all your good jobs. It is very much compliant with the standards, any standard that we're talking today. It is a low-code, no-code, config-based environment. It does what the telcos and the CSPs want. That's the foundation layer. Then there's a layer that sits on the top where you have fun. You play with your AI layer. You play whatever the trend today. You play with your cryptocurrencies. It doesn't matter. But there's a layer, let's call it edge. You get the opportunity to play, but you do not touch the foundation layer, which is the bread and butter of your business. So I think it should always be considered in these two layers. Have fun. Yes, you're a technology company. You need to keep abreast with everything that's new, agreed. But your foundation, your baseline should never be affected as a result of that.
Okay. Yes, that's very, very important point there to make, I think. Further on this point about dealing with the legacy, how are you tackling the challenge of decoupling legacy systems while still ensuring business continuity and minimizing risk? So, Jawwad, from the operator community, perhaps you'd like to take that one on first.
So I think what we just discussed pretty much stands for most of the organizations. There is an interesting term that I came across, which was strangler fig approach. And that's probably the most natural way of going about it. Yes, we have to always prioritize. I would rather say juggle between innovation as well as staying in business, ensuring the business continuity. So it is always going to be smaller components, starting small, and then moving those bits and pieces towards more composable or new architecture based applications. And I believe, as I said earlier, the concept is not new. It's been around with us for a long time. It's TM Forum's framework that probably enables organizations to go there with more confidence. Going to be evolution, going to be piecemeal approach, one by one, and following a better structure that is available today so that we can move there.
Okay. Pramath, would you like to add to that one?
A bit more on the, I would say more on the talent side,
Sure.
because there are legacy products, and I'm sorry to say there are legacy people too.
Yes.
So to get out of that legacy, you'll have to convert the legacy people as well. You have to embrace new skills.
Yes.
You have to embrace new engineering practices. When we said AI is a great enabler, AI comes along with new requirement for new ways of learning the engineering processes of AI products. AI development is not coding.
No.
It's more to do with data ops and ML ops.
Yes.
From my personal experience, and I'm sure you all agree that we in this industry are a bit pathetic with that. And we have learned, we have seen, we can take examples from other industries where they have embraced change better. They conduct culture hackathons as compared to code hackathons.
Yeah.
So yes, there is a room for creativity here in our industry to get over legacy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, since you've mentioned the sort of organizational changes, I think the final question here, and then of course we'll adjourn for lunch, is in what ways is composable IT changing how your teams design, deliver, and manage services across both the consumer and enterprise domains? So it's quite a broad question, but Jawwad, maybe you'd like to kick us off there.
Okay. So I would like to share here that probably it's not the team structure that changes. And I fully agree that it's going to be the mindset or the cultural shift that is both an enabler as well as the sustaining pillar of this change. So less of org structure, more of org culture that is required.
Okay, excellent. Shashank, do you want to add something there?
I think as a vendor, as a product development vendor, a theoretical way to look at this is your teams should be designed and aligned in line with the composable modules that you're preparing. And they should be able to speak a common language, just like these modules need to speak. But that's a very theoretical aspect to talk and say, you know, my teams will have, I'll have 15 and 20 different teams of different modules who will speak with each other.
Yes.
But that's an ideal way of looking at it. But sure, there should be, you know, people in the team who are an expert of that particular module, and yet there should be a different set of solution architects who should have a complete end-to-end understanding of how things work. But they have to keep their mindset in the way of designing that module independently and not being dependent on something else.
Yeah. Okay.
And essentially, you know, that's what comes when you have a company that's 26 years old. I'm bragging here. And, you know, we've gone through that entire technological evolution, life cycles. We've seen things go up and down. So you evolve yourself in line with where the world is moving. Yes, you take a step back, you deliberate, you understand how things go, and then you move forward in the direction where the world is moving and has taken a consensus to move. So, you know, essentially that's how in a theoretical world teams should be designed.
Yeah.
Yes, there are pros and cons of it, but that's how the world should move.
Yeah. So you need that expertise, the domain
Correct.
expertise, the but you also need a kind of agility and flexibility and an overview as well.
Exactly.
Willie, as we're sort of running out of time now, would you like to sort of round off the discussion here in relation to teams and the impact on teams?
Well, first of all, I just want to, hopefully for the audience that sort of sat through the whole presentation and the panel discussions, it's very good to see the golden thread of what I spoke about in terms of the ODA Foundation, the TM Forum, standard APIs, and how it's actually transitioning from the old world into the new AI world that we find ourselves in. It's very interesting. What I'm seeing is that, all of us are beginning to use AI tools in our day-to-day work. Our software engineers are no different. Increasingly, there's lots of pressure on them to also, on the one hand, pressure, on the other hand, they're also pulling, using AI tools to develop AI solutions. And so I think we need to think about legacy architectures and how that transform into AI-enabled architectures. Can we use AI to make that transition easier, if you want, with less friction, less risk, less customer impact? Because that's what I said earlier as well. Every transition, every migration is a huge, very risky event for ECSP. But if you do technology migrations, you have to go through that. The question really is can AI tooling, AI capability help, and to what extent, to introduce the standardized composable architectures, but do it in a frictionless way, in a seamless way. It sounds like nirvana, but I think the tools that can enable us to do that are emerging very, very quickly. And I think it's quite an exciting time from that point of view.
Okay, excellent. So on that optimistic note, I'd like to thank all of our panelists here and all of the previous speakers, and thank the audience for staying on till the hopefully not bitter end.
Enjoy it.
Yep. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.